Can everyone hear me okay? If you want to type in the chat room and let me know, that would be great. Yay, okay, great. So for those of you that were in the last session, just I want you to know that this is totally real life. And I'm sitting in my bedroom where I'm working, and I realized that the session had run over, and I ran out of the bedroom, and I was like, the session ran over and I'm out of water and I have to use the bathroom. And then I ran and did all of those things and ran back here for this session. So it is always a little crazy, but it's a lot of fun when you're kind of working for yourself. So I think that it's important for us to share the real side of how it all works. So I'm glad you guys could join. I want to use this session to talk through the exercises that we did this week, share some additional insights, and then answer any questions you guys have about your specific business and that came up during the worksheet. So the first one, first thing I want to talk about is the values worksheet. So did everyone have a chance to finish the personal values worksheet that I sent out? Awesome. Would if you're comfortable, you can go ahead and share the values that you chose in the chat room. And I think this is a really fun exercise because what you find is when you're going through that list, there are things that are so important to you that you think like, who wouldn't have this on their list? Like this is so essential to life in order for happiness. And then when you look at other people's lists and you see that they have totally different values, you can kind of it is often very intertwined with your personality of the things that you value. And so I think it's always fun to see the things that other people value and understand just how different we all are and that we all want different things. And so one of the assumptions that people always make is that everyone wants the same thing them. So I was always like, I always wanted to have my own business. When I was like 18, I wanted to have my own business. And we were graduating from high school, and I was like, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to learn how to do business. I'm going to have an empire, and like, I'm going to rule the world. I'm never getting married. I'm never having kids. And like, this is my dream. And of course, I thought, like, man, I'm going to really have to fight to get to the top because everyone wants to do their own business and everyone has this dream of like just being a businesswoman. And then I realized that all of my friends were purposefully choosing careers that would give them a lot of free time when they had kids down the road. And I was like, what? Like, why would you want to be a nurse? Or why would you want to be, a hairdresser? Like, that's not fun. And they're like, well, but I could get a lot of time off to be with my kids. I could go to their sporting events and like, and so the things that we value directly influence what career we choose. And we all want different things. And so you're not competing with everyone to be a professional artist or with everyone to be a professional illustrator or creative. You're only ever competing with a few people because everyone wants such different things and we go about it in such different ways. And so I think that that's a really important part of the exercise is just identifying like what is it that's most important to us so that we can start making decisions around that. And oftentimes it's intuitive, like we know what's really important to us, but it's good to really kind of identify that and put it out there. And then, so will you guys please share your personality types if you were able to complete the personality type assessment? You all typing. ISFP. Two ISFPs. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, you flopped them, Erica. ISNJ. Krishna. I think you might be an INFP, but we'll talk about this. So when you're this is why I always ask for the types and so using personality types is a great way to understand how to connect with someone and understand like what they value and what is interesting to them. So anyone that has an S in their type, they're very grounded in reality, and so they notice everything around them. Like they will spend a lot of time like picking out the right outfit because like they're really into colors and patterns, and like they notice like the concrete things around them. And there's this test my friend does where she says if you leave a door cracked, like if you walk into a room and you go like you're shutting the door but you leave it cracked just a little bit, an S will get up and shut the door. Like they can't, like they notice the door's supposed to be closed and you didn't close it, and why when you close the door you were trying to close the door, and so they'll always close it. But like an N, if you have an N in your type and you're intuitive, you're like you don't even notice that the door is open. Like you're thinking about something else, you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about big picture, and you're so like not aware of what's happening right in front of you. And another great example is if you've ever been driving somewhere and you're like on the interstate and you know like okay I have to take this exit, and then you start thinking about something and you forget to take the exit, you're an N. And if that sounds like crazy town, like who would just drive by their exit and not notice, then you're an S, and like you're very in tune with that. And so we within the art and design and kind of creativity world, S types tend to be like their work is very like detailed. Like they'll spend a lot of time on colors and textures, and they're very focused in like the minutia of creating beautiful artwork. And if you are an N, and that's kind of what drives you as an artist. If you are an N type, what typically drives you is wanting to make a change in the world and seeing that you can do that through your artwork. And so typically anyone who's like there's a lot of artists who are like INFPs and INFJs, and they are always like they are using their art to spread a message or to put something out in the world, or to make a change with people. That's okay, Erica. And so so understanding like what it is that kind of drives you, I think is really important, and then also kind of how you're seeing the world. So to an S type, Krishna, yes, you're an S. So you noticed that I didn't list in the last session, like here are the five parts of a business plan, because like I forgot to talk about one of them. Like I was going to recover it in the end. I didn't have time. And so I just skipped it. And then like I kind of mentioned marketing, and it's because I'm an intuitive type, and like in my mind it's like who would notice that you didn't do all five, or who cares, you've got the message. And to an S type it's like, well, where's number three? Like it's and it's just the way that you see the world. And so understanding that like someone is a sensor or someone's an intuitive, you can kind of get a sense of like how they see the world and how that's different from you, and how you can change your behavior or communicate better with them. And this really is helpful in like marriage and with kids, because if you start to understand like all of the crazy things that all of the things your spouse does that drive you crazy, or your kids do that drive you crazy, typically it is because of a personality trait conflict. So my partner is a ENFJ. So everyone in this house except for her has a P in their personality type, which means we're idea people. We have constant ideas and we never get anything done. Like we're just running from one idea to the next. And J types are like, give me a list, I'll get it done. I'm on top of it. You don't even have to check my work because I always have my stuff together. And so like all of the fights in the house are that like she she's running circles around us. Like she gets so much stuff done that we just look totally incompetent, but it's because we're so into our ideas, and bouncing from one thing to another, that it's really hard to focus on like here's the thing we have to get done. Can everyone still hear me okay? Yes, okay. And then I will say too, like ISFJ is like the typical artist. Like they are like they're most likely to be an artist because like they're so in tuned into feelings and what's happening in front of them, and like they just want to spend a lot of time creating art. So that's a very common path for them. And I think, are you all feeler types? Yeah, you're all introverts and you're all feelers. So if you're an introvert, you need a lot of alone time to process your ideas. And also, I would recommend everyone, if you have not, read the book Quiet by Susan Cain. And so she is an introvert, and her whole book is about how the world doesn't value introverts because they don't understand them. So whoever is talking the loudest or saying the most tends to, like, people assume that they're the most valuable or the most credible, but really they're just like the most extroverted. And introverts need more time to process their ideas and come up with like really smart things to say. But if they have that time in that space, they are like 10 times more productive and 10 times more interesting, and their ideas are better and they have better answers than extroverts because they've spent that time thinking about it. But the world wants us to move so fast that introverts are constantly feeling like, they're not moving fast enough, or they shouldn't be so quiet, or they shouldn't, take time for themselves, or that it's a negative trait. And that book really talks about how you think about being an introvert in a positive light, and how it actually, like, kind of honoring the fact that you're an introvert will make your life better. So I highly recommend that. And then for the feeler types, most artists tend to be feelers because there's something you are very connected with. It just means you're very connected with people's feelings. So in an everyday situation, when you're talking to someone, you are constantly in tune to like, how is what I'm saying going to make this person feel? How will this, person react? Like, what's going to happen? And people who are a T type, they usually come off as jerks to feelers, because it's almost like you guys have these special glasses where you can see in the world, you can see this extra layer that's like all of people's feelings and emotions kind of like working together. And it's like thinkers don't have those glasses and they aren't even seeing it. Like they don't even realize that they're like necessarily offending someone, or that someone's feelings are going to get hurt if they say something in this way or if they word it that way. Like they're totally focused on like just like logical, coming up with logical answers to the problem, that they disregard feeling. Like they just don't think about it. And so having that scope and that understanding people is really both a special talent and something that can hold you back forever. The thing is, like, T types they always tend to earn more money than feeler types. And the reason is that they're not going to lower their prices because they, know they care about this person, or they're not going to take on a project they don't like because like they feel it's the right thing to do, or the way that they make decisions is based on like, okay, what's going to get me the most revenue, what's going to get me the most profit, like how do I lower my costs, and they're never thinking about like the feeling implications. And so I always say my partner's an F2, and I say that her conscience is her biggest weakness. So like she will say no or not do something because she feels bad, or she's not sure how the other person will feel. And in making those decisions, it's oftentimes those things that kind of hold you back. So I think recognizing that you're really in tune to that, and that sometimes it's okay if you hurt someone's feelings, or if they might take it the wrong way, and like probably you're going to go overboard, never to offend anyone because you're a feeler type and you're so watchful of that. So kind of just being aware of how sensitive you are to other people's feelings, and then how that is affecting your decision making will help you kind of navigate those situations, which can be really tricky. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right, I don't see anyone typing. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the exercise of looking at other people's businesses and why we did it and what you can learn from that. So the first thing to understand when you're looking at someone else's career is that it never their business or their career is never as great as they portray. So the job of a business is to be like, we're a great business and this is our brand and we're killing it and we're awesome and buy our stuff. And so when you go to a great like artist website or a great handmade shop, you oftentimes assume like they have it all together and they're making tons of money and like they're on top of the world. And in reality, it could be one person in their garage who sold 10 things but has a really great website. Or, you may assume that they're making tons of money and they're not. Or you may assume that, they have some fancy office or studio and they don't. And so, really, it's good to kind of dig in it and notice like that there are realities of business that always make it hard for everyone. Like no one has just figured out this easy way to build something that's just great and perfect. Like there is always great things about a business and sucky things about a business. So sometimes it may be like they've built an amazing brand and they have all of these retailers on their site and they are, they have a great brand behind them. But on the back end, they only make $1 for every product they sold. And so like they are barely breaking even. So like you don't know what the pieces are, but there are always kind of good things and bad things with every business. And so when you're looking at someone's business and you're like, wow, this is amazing, they're totally on top of the world, try to ask yourself like what pieces of this business are hard, so like if you're pursuing that path, like what it looks like and being realistic and don't just assume that they have it all together. And then the next thing is the only difference between where you are and where they are is time and money. And so we assume when we look at someone's website, like so a great example is Marie Forleo is this great business expert, and everyone who wants to be a business coach is like, I want to be Marie Forleo. But if you look back, when she first started out, she had a blog and she was doing videos from her kitchen and she was just publishing them every day. And they weren't high quality and she was in a t-shirt and like they weren't that great. And then, as she built an audience, she redid her website. And as she redid her website, she started building her email list. And as she did that, she started selling courses. And then when she started selling courses, she had tons of money to spend on her marketing. So if you're sitting there as someone who is just starting their coaching business and looking at her business as something you want to build, you can't just build that overnight. It's going to take time. And so understanding that like if somebody is farther along in their business or their career, it's just because they spent more time doing that thing. And so another great book that I half read was called Outliers, and it's by Malcolm Gladwell, and it's all about how successful people got successful and like what affects their success. And so it's basically proves that it takes 10,000 hours to master any skill. So if you are painting for 10,000 hours, if you spend 10,000 hours of your life painting, you will have like mastered painting. Like you can't get better than that. If you spend more time, you will have kind of hit your max. Like that's the best you're going to get at 10,000 hours. And so so people who have a lot of success typically started when they were younger or started building their skills when they were younger, or maybe they have a spouse that is working and they're just at home and they spend all of their time working on building their skills. So 40 hours a week are devoted to learning illustration skills and art skills. Like the time that you invest in it is what's going to help you develop your skills and develop your business. And so if somebody is further ahead, they've just invested more time, like which means they just have had more time. So it doesn't mean that you're never going to get there or that you can't achieve that thing, but it does take time and money and resources. And so just continuing to work on it, and knowing that like you're not there yet, but you will get there, and believing in that is really the key, because anyone can build a business around their art as long as they don't give up. Because if you close the art business, you can't keep trying to build a business around your art. And so, learning to just continue to invest time in it, even when it feels like I'm not making money, I'm not doing something. Like if you're doing something you love and you do something you're great at, you will figure out how to sell it and how to make money from it. And it's just going to take you time and practice. So I just want to encourage you to not feel discouraged when you're looking at other people's success and feeling like, oh, I should be there, I should have that, because we are all in different seasons of life. We all have different backgrounds. We are all living in different areas and have access to different resources. And typically that is the difference. And so don't assume that you're not going to be able to kind of get there. And then so then the other thing I wanted to do was give you a couple of great examples of this. So New York Times bestselling authors. So a majority of people who make the New York Times bestselling author list are very wealthy people who write a book and hire a PR. There are PR agencies that specialize in getting you on the New York Times list. So there's like these rules, like from the data publication, and like you have to sell a certain number of books within this like 2-day window in order to make the list, and like it compares like what other books come out on that day. So they do all this research to find out like what day should we publish it, how many books need to sell, where do they need to come from, that kind of thing. And they set up the whole campaign to guarantee that the book gets on the New York Times bestselling list. And so so it costs like $20,000 to do this. Now, who has money to write an entire book and then spend $20,000 to get on the New York Times bestseller list? And the reason it costs $20,000 is because you're mostly paying for the books yourself, like you're buying them yourself, or get like paying for them and sending them as reviews, that kind of thing. But you're buying all of the books to get yourself on the list, and that's why it costs so much. So you write this book and you spend $20,000, and then after that, you're a New York Times bestselling author, which then you have to figure out how to take that title and make money from it. And so, like, when you see that someone's a New York Times bestselling author, you assume, wow, they must have wrote such a great book that it was flying off the shelves and everyone wanted to read it, and they're a huge success and they're making tons of money. But the reality is that a majority of them are consultants, coaches, or very wealthy people who wanted to make a name for themselves in a specific niche. And the book is the marketing tool to get that business built. So they are willing to spend $30,000, creating this book, because they know once they're a New York Times bestselling author that they'll be able to double their consulting business. But the only people that can do this are people who have $20,000 sitting in their pocket. And so a lot of times, if you're a writer and you're like, I want to be a New York Times bestselling author, you don't realize who you're competing against and what the resources they have and what they're doing. And so, and this is an example of never assuming someone's business is as great as they portray. So like if someone's spending $30,000 for a marketing tool, it's probably like that writing a book and trying to get on the bestseller list isn't a great route for you, because in reality, it's not all that it seems. And I think that that is a really important lesson. And then the other person I want to mention is Tory Burch, because Tory Burch is like the woman business success story. She created a line of handbags and then shoes, and like now it's a multi-billion-dollar business. And everyone raves that she's so great because she did a design of the bags on a paper sack and got funding and did her business. But no one talks about the fact that her husband is an investment banker. So she went to her husband's friends with this idea of selling very expensive purses to her wealthy friends, and her husband's friends funded her. So like nobody who isn't living in New York City with an investment banker husband can become Tory Burch. Like that's not a path we can take. And so understanding like how people built the business they did and how they got there and looking at their background, you will always find that there's something that they use, something that they personally had that no one else has. And so you have to figure out what that is for you. And it may be a skill. It may be that, you're scrappier and faster. It may be that you can appeal to this niche that no one does, but figure out how do you use the assets and resources that you have in front of you to build the business that you want. And then the last thing here I want to talk about is it actually choosing a career. So a lot of times people will come to the conclusion of, this is what I want to do. Like I want to be a coach, or I want to be a consultant, or I want to be an artist, but they have no idea how they're going to do it. So they like pretend that's not what they want to do, or they're afraid to say it out loud. And so it's okay for you to say like, I'm going to be a career coach and have no idea how you're going to get there. Or I'm going to be a surface pattern designer and have no idea how you're going to get there, because the first step is just figuring out what it is you want to do. And once you figure out what it is you want to do, then you can craft your plan around building that business. But you have to really kind of find that thing like in your heart, this is the thing that I want to do, and just say it and put it out there and put it out in the world and not be afraid of it. And so that was really this exercise of trying to figure out, where do I want to focus my talents, is just figuring out like what is that thing that is really going to be fulfilling to you in your career, that you can kind of point all of your efforts in that direction. So that is all, those are all of my notes that I had for this session. And I want to take time now to answer any questions you guys might have about the individual worksheets, about your own business, anything you want to ask, it's fair game. Can you guys still hear me? Are you here? Oh, there we go. Christian's typing. Okay, I don't know if you guys have any questions. But if you have any questions as you're going through this, if you haven't finished the worksheets, or if you want feedback on your individual worksheets, please just email me, because we have a really small group. So I'm trying to give you as much kind of one-on-one feedback as I can, because a lot of this, it's easy to talk about at a high level, but then when it comes to implementing it on your own business, it can be kind of overwhelming. And it oftentimes has to be customized depending on what you're selling or what you're doing. So don't be afraid to ask if you have questions or want advice on a particular part of your business. So for someone like me, illustrator artist, I like doing a variety of creative things, and I'm interested in a bunch of industries. What would be a good number for a focus? So the first thing so people that have a lot of interest will have a really hard time picking one thing to focus on. And so they'll focus on too many things, and none of them will be really successful. And I am an idea person. Like I never want to give up my idea. Like I think all of my ideas are brilliant and I need to pursue them all, and I don't want to say no to any of them. So, but what I realize is the only way for me to make money is to focus on something, really anything at this point. So, what I suggest is first running the numbers and figuring out like which type of business or type of client is going to get you to your income goal. So typically it's like, okay, if I'm freelancing and I could get like 4 freelance clients a month or 5, I could reach my income goal. And so then just focus first on going after that and focusing all of your energy on it, because this is what's going to be your foundational income. So the first kind of revenue stream that you want to build is the revenue stream that's large enough to actually support you and support your business, because that will then kind of guarantee that you're able to pay your bills and kind of meet your monthly needs. So figure out like what is that foundational thing, the thing, and typically in every business, like the majority of your revenue comes from one product or service, and then you'll have little bits of revenue coming from all kinds of different things. And so you have to kind of figure out like what is that core thing where you make all of your money. And probably it might be like, initially it's freelancing or doing commissions. And then, so focus 100% of your energy on that. And then once you have that established, where you have regular freelance clients coming in, you have a consistent income, things are getting more stable, then you can use the extra time that you have to build out your other revenue streams. So that's where you would focus on finding licensing clients, creating your own products, publishing an ebook. And so what you want to do is try and figure out like spend like 20 hours of your, if you work 40 hours a week, spending half your time, 20 hours, focused on the work that's going to pay your bills, that's going to guarantee like you can eat. And then the rest of your time can be on creative projects that like you are interested in and you want to try and do, but you don't have to rely on every single one to make money because you know that you're going to be able to kind of pay your bills with this foundational income. So I think that that is a really good exercise, and it's hard to kind of focus and decide, okay, I'm going to go after this full force. But once you do that and like you get the confidence of seeing like how you build just one thing into a viable business, then it gives you a lot of kind of expertise into being able to duplicate that with other ideas. Any advice around confidence and putting yourself out there? My issue is overcoming that first leap of faith and putting my work out in the world. It's scary for everyone. And it's, I will say it's easier for me because I'm an extrovert. And so I just want to tell everyone all of my ideas, whether they want to hear them or not. Um, but what I have found is one, it's easier to share your work with people who don't know you personally first. So I started blogging in 2009. I was like 19 years old, 20 years old, something like that. And is that, I was trying to think if that math was right. But when I started blogging, I did not share a link on any of my personal Facebook pages. I did not share a link on any like profiles where I was connected with friends or family. So like people could find it, like if they were Googling me online or if they like found me on Twitter and followed me, but I wasn't like, hey, family and friends, I'm doing this blog, come read it, because I was really afraid they would just judge me and they would think it was stupid and like they would discourage me, and I didn't want to deal with that. And so then what happened was I built a community around my blog of like the people who like were interested in my stories and wanted to follow my writing. And then once I built that and I saw that like outside people that didn't know me liked my work, it gave me confidence to then start sharing it with my friends and family. So then once I saw that like people were reading my blog and they liked it, then I was like, oh well, I can share it on Facebook. And so then once I started doing that, it was much easier. And like the more you put yourself out there, the more comfortable you will get. But I think like I always try to go like, what's the worst that could happen? And like someone could tell you your work sucks, and like that person's probably a jerk. Because like anyone that would just tell you like you sucked or you shouldn't pursue something, like isn't somebody that you really want in your life and isn't someone who's going to support your business anyways. And there will always be like, because we all have different personalities and different values and different backgrounds and aesthetics, there will always be a group of people who like find what you do totally fascinating. And so putting your work out there is more about finding that group of people than trying to make sure everyone loves you and thinks everything you're doing is great. Krista, can you give me an example of one of your goals and I can help? Does that help, Nicole? Sorry, that was a long answer. Good, awesome. I will never forget though, once I started sharing, grew up in a really small town of like 2,000 people, and I started sharing my posts on Facebook. And like, one day I went to the gas station, and like, of course, I know a lady who runs the gas station, and she started telling me how she had read my blog post and she thought it was so great. And like, having someone say something to your face about your work that you post online, I wanted to die. I was like, I was so embarrassed. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, real people are reading this and they're going to talk to me about it. And like, it was this total surreal moment of having to deal with the fact that people are reading your stuff and like, it was just weird. And so I think that everyone has to kind of go through that. And it's kind of like awkward tween years of like figuring out like how to be that way, because it's really hard for you to put stuff out there. And even me, like doing this video content, like I have to pretend that no one's ever going to watch the recording, because if I think about the fact that there are like 100 videos of me talking up on the internet that people could be watching at any time, like that is, I have so much anxiety thinking about that. So I have to kind of put it in the back of my head and just like, okay, I'm going to show up for the live session and do it. Because if you think about the whole big picture, it really can swallow you. Okay, one of my values is security and wealth. I combine them. The goal is to make X dollars a year, but I guess I'm having a hard time breaking down um, the 5 steps. Yes. Okay, so that's because you have a really big goal. So um, to make, so your goal is to make, let's say it's like my goal is to make $30,000 a year. So then you can, the first step you're going to do is create your business plan to figure out what you're going to sell to make 30,000 a year. And then your second step is going to be finding customers and getting them on board. And so like the problem with that one is just like your goal's too big to tackle all at once. Like you could say, I want to make $5,000 next month. And then you could be like, okay, I need to find 5 freelance clients and they each need to pay me $1,000. And in order to find 5, I'm going to email 10 art directors every week and try and get phone calls with 3 of them. And then like one of them will hire me. And so like that, these are my steps. So I think making the goal smaller and more concrete will make it more actionable because you can't tackle like the whole year at once, but you could be like, I want to make $500 next week. And sometimes that's a lot easier to just think in the short term and figure out like, okay, well, now I figured out how to make $1,000 a week. Well, now next month I want to make $6,000. And so then you can kind of start to grow from there. But I think really narrowing down your goals of like, things that you can do kind of in the now. Does that make sense? Awesome. Well, I think we answered all the questions. If you guys have any more, you can type them here in the chat and I'm happy to answer them. And feel free to email me if you have any follow-up questions from this exercise. But I really hope that you guys found some answers to the questions that you have. And I think more importantly, noticing that, the thing that's holding you back is that you're afraid to put yourself out there, you don't have confidence. Like identifying that that's what's holding you back is really the first step. And it's like, you don't have to be in a place where you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to get over it and jump on. Like maybe it'll take you a few months to kind of get it out there or build that confidence. But identifying that, like, that is the thing that's holding you back will push you forward so much. And so just noticing the things about yourself that, are special and that are not so special and that are annoying or that are kind of holding you back, the things that can make you successful, just identifying those things about yourself and getting to know who you are as a person really will help guide you through building your business and building your career because the more you understand about like what you want and what makes you who you are, the better choices you can make about what direction you should be headed. All right, thank you everyone for joining. This was awesome. And feel free to email me if you have any follow-up questions at all. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.